Andy, you've talked about how our kids come in immersed in this world of the hyperreal, the world of the screens, and even in ministry we have some temptations to go there so that it's familiar and alluring for them, but that there are some really rich opportunities for ministry and confession and testimony when the real intrudes, as it just inevitably does in every lived life. That when the real intrudes, we can meet them in that real space and do ministry because that hyperreal is shattered. Can you talk some more about those moments?
Yeah, and I think often these real moments, sometimes we confuse those in youth ministry, and we should be really aware of this as youth workers, not to see them as too superficial. I mean, in some sense, I'm trying to drive us to not be superficial and not to get stuck in kind of alluring kids to come and to really actually enter into their lives. But one of the dangers or the pitfalls of youth ministry is sometimes we think these experiences where the real comes in, we think they're superficial. One of my most kind of formative stories for myself in my own youth ministry is I took a bunch of kids to camp. And one of the kids that I took to camp, and I felt very good about myself because I had got this kid named Adam to come to camp. And he was a big, strong, 9th grade hockey player. And I was living in Minnesota at the time, and if you know hockey players, like these are big, strong, tough kids. And he had come to camp, and he was never interested in church or the gospel before, and he had come, so I was already patting myself on the back for getting this kid to come. And at the first night where just the introduction to the gospel story was shared, I looked over at the end of the night, and Adam was crying. And I thought to myself, we got him. Like, we got him. This has worked. And I'm already thinking to myself, man, where am I going to put that trophy for greatest youth worker ever, you know? So I sensitively wait for the room to clear out. And Adam's still kind of sitting on the floor with his hands on his head. And I come up to him, and I'm ready to be the sensitive youth minister here. And I say, Adam, you want to go for a walk? So we start walking around the camp area, and I'm convinced that the gospel has penetrated his heart, and that, you know, just one day at camp and he's got it. So I'm walking around with him, and I said, so Adam, what's going on? Are things okay? And he starts crying hard. And now I'm thinking, the gospel's penetrated his heart. And it's Jesus. It's Jesus. That Jesus has got him. And he goes, he starts to try to talk, and he says, it's just, I don't know, man, it's just, and I'm thinking, Jesus? And I'm already thinking, what chapter in his book, when he becomes a missionary, will I get a full chapter or just a few pages? You know, I'm thinking of all these grand things. And he says, it's just. I'm like, yeah, Jesus? He says, it's just, she just doesn't know I exist. And as soon as he said it, it was like a movie where I got flashbacks to earlier scenes, and I'm taken back in my memory to the bus ride up, and there was this girl who he had a crush on ever since, you know, he was in 5th grade, and he had only gone to camp, not because of me, but because she was going to be there, and he made his big move the first night of camp, and she rejected him. And my thought that night when he said that was, you stupid kid. Like, you stupid kid. Here we are talking about eternity and really significant things, and all you can do is cry about this girl. Now, I'm sure people watching will recognize right away, but obviously that was bad ministry that night. And what you had is this kid who, yeah, at one level it maybe is superficial. Like, he won't remember this girl. He doesn't remember her now, you know, many years later. And who remembers all their, you know, 8th grade crushes or 9th grade crushes? But it was a real experience of nothingness for him. It was a real experience where reality broke in, where he felt rejected. Like, he asked this deep question of, what is my lifetime and why do I live it? What's the point? I mean, I think in many ways he was asking, where is God in the midst of this? And I think that we need to be really incredibly sensitive to those experiences. It's so easy for us to just roll our eyes and think, stupid teenage love. But there is a deeper subtext to that about, what is my life? Why do I live this? And if we can't seek for God in the midst of those deep questions, if we can't help young people articulate those experiences and seek for God in the midst of them, or try to make sense out of them, and if we can't in some sense do an imaginative theological work with those moments, then I think we find ourselves in a problem. And I think youth ministry, the beauty of youth ministry, what we do is so wonderful, is that young people say those things, and young people are feeling those things, and those become an incredible location to think deep questions about, who is this young person, and who is this God, and where is God in the midst of when you feel heartbreak? Where is God in the midst of you feel great joy because something wonderful has happened? How do we think about our lives within that? And I think that becomes the significant location where ministry starts, is in those deep questions.